Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here. Before we go any further, hey, please hit the subscribe button and maybe even the like button for many more great historically based game videos. Okay. This is, of course, Imperator Rome. You knew that when you clicked on the thumbnail. If you're then it's soon to be released when this video is being made. If you're just here looking to see if the game is a good game, let me just say this: it's effing great. Okay, it just really is. It does meet the level of a great game, and we're going to be talking more about that. And I could go on and on about a lot of things. But let me set the stage, the important stage. And I love this map. I haven't even begun to dig into it at all. But I love this map. And I have been playing the game some at this point. I'm not an expert at it, but I've been playing some. Got the game a while ago. Thank you, Paradox. Really do appreciate that. But you can see here, I love the way this sort of works out. Go beyond what Alexander had been able to get to, all the way up into here as it rotates around. I love this, but there was a reason we were looking here. When this game starts, they're using sort of a Roman dating thing, but we're going to start with the 304 BC. 19 years ago, Alexander the Great dies. This throws his empire into chaos. I was recently asked, just within the last week or so, what is my sort of favorite alt history type moment would be, and it is. And I had to think about it a little bit, but then once I thought about it, it's clear. What if Alexander had lived long enough for his son to come of age and sort of secure his empire? What would the world have been different? But so, let's go back. 19 years before this, Alexander dies. There's various stories, and I'm just going from memory right now. But basically, they sort of panic. There's whether it was died from infections of a wound or poisoning or something else. And they sort of panicked and go away for a while. And some days later they come back and sort of find the body in the tent or whatever. And it hasn't like begun to decompose or anything. I actually think that he wasn't dead from hearing that, if that story is correct. He was just in such a comatose state that they couldn't detect any breathing or anything else, so they believed him dead. Not that he didn't die very shortly after, not that there was anything really to do for him that they knew of, but be that as it may, he dies. His fairly new wife, Roxanne, is pregnant, which turns out to be a boy, but of course no one knows this. Alexander has a brother, a legitimate half-brother, elder brother, Philip III. Now, Philip III, like I say, was his older brother. I think, if I remember correctly, a half-brother. But he wasn't right in the head. Everyone sort of knew this. And I don't know whether it was an accident in childhood or some sort of childhood disease or born that way. The histories aren't really detailed or correct on just what was wrong with him. But, you know, my understanding is, you know, he could speak Greek, or, you know, he could speak and talk, but he just wasn't really right in the head. No one of any real substance would think of him as a ruler. But he's there. Alexander's wife is pregnant. and trust me, we're going to get to the game very quickly here, but Alexander, his wife is pregnant, has a son, Alexander the Fourth. He gets named. Okay, so now we have a newborn son. The bodyguards slash generals, they're basically sort of the same type of thing. They come out of Alexander's sort of, I don't know if you quite want to go childhood or young adulthood bodyguard, his generals, are sort of set up as a loose sort of empire that is acknowledging that it should stay together. And I think at least most of them would like it to, but they know that Philip III isn't going to be a suitable ruler, and a newborn baby is also not a suitable ruler. So they all go to sort of, and this is what they had sort of actually sort of went away and sort of argued about was, and I think they killed a few of them over this, who's going to control the empire, or who's going, as regents, or what areas. So areas of the empire. So they sort of divvy that up, and Ptolemy gets Egypt. This should be Ptolemaic Egypt or whatever. Phrygia should be Antigonus or Antigonid. This is correct in Seleucus, the Seleucids, not sure. And up here, Cassandra. This is really Cassandra. And I say that because all four of these main elements are all held together by what we sort of know as the Macedonian phalanx troops. They're the only military power that counts. And these generals really only have, the territory that they hold is based upon how many of these troops that they get to come to their flag, to their standard, to their support. Seeing here, what is Argos Foundry? See, I'm not terribly fond of this image for the Ptolemies. I would go with the sort of the what is it? It's I think it's either a falcon grounded or perched, or an eagle perched with lightning bolts. I forget whether they're supposed to be falcon or whether that's Horus of Egypt or an eagle. I think it's an eagle. I think it's really more of an eagle with lightning bolts, perched on lightning bolts from Zeus. Am I getting that right? Sorry. So, as a successor, so they're all more or less acknowledging this sort of dual leaders, but I think it's, because I looked some of this just to get some of the dates right, I think it's 317. Remember, this is 304. In 317, Philip IV is assassinated, dies, killed, whatever. And then in 309, I think it was Cassandra, this guy orders Alexander IV, Alexander the Great's son, who was now age 14, and his mother Roxanne killed, and I think they're poisoned or something, and that happens in 309. So this is just a few years after that happens. So you might think, and we're going to get into some of this, that Alexander, and there's also an illegitimate son out there that gets killed at this. So Alexander himself's bloodline ends as far as I know, at that point, but not his family's bloodline. That's an important point. We're going to get to that. So this is what is important in this world at this moment. This little funky little place over here called, the city of Rome on the Tiber River with its port in Ostia. That's a minor nothing nobody really cares about at this time. So at this time, this is what is important. This is what is going on. This is the start of the Hellenistic period. Hellenism, or Greek period, really starts with Alexander the Great spreading it beyond his father Philip II. Basically, I think Sparta sort of not, but basically finally conquers, somewhat unites the Greeks together in one over government. I'm hedging all this stuff because I don't think he actually conquers Sparta, and some of these other powers within here are just sort of acknowledging that he's the overall ruler of Greece, and they're under it, but they're sort of I don't know, sub powers or something. Oh, and these guys are all ruling as satraps, from the sort of the Persian satraps, is what they've been calling themselves, and how they've been governing, and they have been fighting. A very important element, and we'll get to this, is where Alexander's body ends up. So this is what's important. Hellenism has made its big point here, and is starting this period. Obviously, Greek culture goes back long before, but this is sort of when it's set up in the Hellenistic period. I have sitting here next to me, From Alexander to Cleopatra by Michael Grant, and Cleopatra by Michael Grant, writer of books on this Hellenistic period. No, I'm not going to sit here and read the books to you, but there's a lot that I could say about this. Well, I am fascinated for many reasons by the Ptolemaic dynasty. So that's what we're going to play as. That's, I guess, the Seleucids also interest me as well, but we're going to go with the Ptolemies. They're calling it easy, and I would agree. The Antigonid is hard, and you could probably imagine it's hard because he's in the middle of everything, and so when you're in the middle of all the threats, that is a hard place to be. So we're going to start as usual. Okay. Alexander the Great. Oh, well, they're saying it's 18 years ago. My math says, it depends on what date of the time of year. In Babylon, 18 years ago, the Argeanid, I don't know, King Alexander died suddenly at the age of 32. In 5 years preceding his death, his continuing military success had reshaped the world known to the Greeks. His empire, I don't read things very well, as you can already tell. Reading them is to people. His empire stretched uninterrupted from Egypt to the Indus. The shock of Alexander's early death and his lack of a chosen successor sent shockwaves through the hierarchy of the satraps and generals who attended him, splintering his empire into elements ruled by these potentates styled as diadochi. For many years, they and their successors have been linked in a bitter struggle over the future of the empire, drawing all nations within their sphere of influence into the conflict. The wars of Diadochi will surely continue. Perhaps it is up to Egypt to decide how they will end. The die is cast. That, of course, is, at least I know it is first said in a sort of political thing, is Caesar. Okay, and we're going to sort of call this some opening moves here. Again, I want to stress, I am not an expert at this, but I have been playing for a number of hours over the last few days. Okay, Inventions. So we want to look at our inventions. We have these guys researching in the martial, civic, oratory, and religious advances. I will say one thing I don't really like the way, and God, I've already said this is an effing great game, and it is. I don't like the way Paradox does a lot of it's sort of grinding from well, here level 0 and all this stuff up to something else. I see it a lot in some of the other games when I don't see the world as being as such at that time. How do I put this? Sort of like in Hearts of Iron 4. You everybody starts out like, I don't know, with no anti-aircraft or no anti-tank guns, and they all sort of grind them up. Or you start out with weak artillery and you get better artillery as time period goes. The artillery is a great one. You start out with weak artillery, and as you research things, you get better and better artillery. But looking at the actual technology of the production of artillery at the time, from 30, and I did this for Germany, from 36 to 45, that's not the way it worked. They had heavy guns, they had light guns. The artillery that changed over that time period. There was only one thing that I would really say that was and I looked at like 100 and 105 type millimeter range artillery for Germany, and Germany's production of that. Only one stage of their development of artillery in their time made the guns more powerful. Everything else was either cheaper to produce, less complicated to produce, or lighter, so you could move the artillery with less difficulty. Everything was all the improvements in artillery during that time period. So, excuse me. So I don't like the way they organize their game, because you could research artillery and go, oh, better artillery that's equally as good on the battlefield, but costs 20% less to produce. Great, so let's implement this. So obviously you get more artillery for less factory resources, something else. So I don't like their progressive starts and their starts from level 0. But that's sort of this, and as these advance, you will get various benefits to the game. But we have these from these 4 areas, 3 things to pick from that will benefit us. So it's always good to get what you're going to do is technology, speed, fast, but we want money right now. So we can look here and see some of the others, and you can't do so, but keep this sort of moving along. I know I've been talking a bit. We're going to go with property tax, national tax plus 5%. That seems like a no-brainer, so we're going to grab that up. Okay, we're gonna let this sit here for just a moment. We'll probably get another one fairly quickly. We're going to come over and do an omen. This is a Greek-based, even though we are in Egypt, Greek-based religion. And, well, unrest. We have stability. Stability goes from 3 to -3, as you can see right down there in the bottom of this thing. So at 1, we are doing okay. I don't really think we have any real unrest, so I don't think we need to deal with unrest right now. So let's research points, 2%, national manpower, or taxes. We're going to do the blessing of Hades and get more taxes. We're going with money. We're being greedy. Okay, now another important element in starting out is trade. Now, trade benefits in many ways, but what is important here are some elements of trade. We can only right now build Um, I'm probably going to butcher some of these because, you know, I always thought it was hoplites. Till recently I've listened to, because I have opportunities to listen to things, audiobooks instead of reading them, Phalanx versus Legion. It's a really good book, highly recommended, and they examine the few battles that they have reasonably good records, is the Phalanx clashing with the Roman legions and how they're different. But I always thought it was hoplites, but they pronounce it hoplites, so I don't know which is correct or there, but hoplites. Took me a little bit to figure out what they were talking about when they were talking about hoplites, but sort of dropping the H and hoplites. So Hypaspis or Spisoli? Okay, archers and light shield. That's all we can build here, and that's basically all we can build, unless, because we come down here, this needs horses. We currently don't have a source for horses in this province. Now, if you come to some other provinces down here, okay, well, then we can get into some of this stuff here. We can now build camels, camel oi. So we have access to camels, to some cavalry units, but we really can't build this Pescatori are basically the phalanx type troops, and we want to be able to build those, and we also want to be able to build triremes. Triremes are basically the only ships that we've encountered. So to do, and we need to have iron and wood to do those two things. So I want to come to here, importing dyes helps us out, but we're going to cancel this. Yes, we're going to cancel this, and we want to do this very early on because these trade routes will get snapped up by somebody else. So we want to import iron, and we're going to do it from Media Magnia, which is in the Seleucid Empire. Seleucid Empire is to some degree our allies right now, so we're going to get that coming in. So it allows heavy infantry. And we want to do one more trade unit of wood. We will develop a source for wood here. And you can trade within your own empire. So say if we wanted to trade, if we wanted to build all our units up here, and we wanted camels or something, we could trade for camels from within our own empire. But we just got iron, so but we want wood. We will get a source of wood where ourselves internally up here. But I noticed earlier on these disappearing, and either because they don't like us or whatever and won't trade with us, like you see all these guys, or there's not a good trade route, because obviously there's lots of wood. Dalmatia, which is up here, might be an okay place to trade from, but I think we're going to try to also trade from Seleucid. Seleucid Empire. Okay. So we want to get that started. We want to get that going. Now, we want to grow our money. And so we currently, and I have no inside information on this at all, but I am sure over time they're going to add things to this game. So far there are only basically 3 building types. I'm sure this will change. I'm sure there's going to be much more developments because they're going to want to sell you lots and lots of DLCs. Okay, so we want to, and this is a province that we're sort of clicked on, and this specifically is a city of Alexandria. Where this is, well, let's go to Nakukratis. Sorry. And actually, I did want to click on that one. This is, so these are sort of counted as cities. My dream game would be basically all of this with added in 2 other elements. One of them, and we'll give a plug for my other series that will be continuing, Field of Glory Empires. And that is another Empire-based game, but it uses Field of Glory 2, which is a battlefield classical era game, and in which when 2 armies meet and go into combat, it automatically launches the other game and you fight it out on the battlefield and then exports the results back into this. So you get to actually be the general on the field with all the unit types and all of that stuff. I love that. Oh man, I love that. And the other thing I would love to do is go back to the old Caesar 1, 2, and 3. I at least played 1 and 2 games, which are sort of city building games. I would love that to be into this. Now, especially with a game like this and going to a major empire. Now, if you're just going to run Athens, in which you have a couple of actual sort of cities, you could do it all. But you just simply would turn on, for most of it, local governors or mayors or whatever that have the AIs that you could click on the cities and then go in and look at them, but it would sort of run themselves, and you could micromanage if you wanted to. You could theoretically micromanage it all, but you could pick a few major cities that you wanted to micromanage in that actual city design, city building element of it, something like Alexandria and a few other things like that. I would love those all 3 blended together into something like this. But we're coming down over here. Notice here it says city building 0 of 7. The number of city buildings that you can have is based upon the population of the city. And we can see here the taxes this city is bringing in 1.42, where this is bringing in 0.75, 0.42. So we want to come here. And marketplace, local tax plus 5%, commerce income plus 5%. Training camp, this increases manpower. This is also very important. Fortress, we all sort of know what that does. Makes things, fortresses. And granary, which basically so far all it does is increase population growth and improve slave happiness. Again, these are simplistic buildings. This stuff is going to grow and get better. But we want to increase our money coming in, so we're going to build some marketplaces here. Basically, all these buildings cost is sort of a flat 100. Sort of going to relatively large. Looking up there, we can do maybe 1 more right now. I don't want to drain. No, not. Yeah, 5. And I'm picking these sort of for a reason. Now. Earlier on, we were talking about the Alexander Empire, its collapse, and the start of Hellenism. Okay, and here's a really important element here. I'm looking here. They got all these great map modes. They messed up with Hearts of Iron 4. Oh, we only want 1 map mode and just can't quite do that, so we'll have a few small others, but they realized they made their mistake here. So they're sort of calling it Macedonian. But we can see here culture group Hellenistic, dominant culture is Macedonian, again Hellenistic, dominant Cyrenaic and local. So there's that. But we can see all the way out here now Bactria, actually the Hellenistic cultural element way out here predates Alexander. At various points in time when the Persian kings defeated, and there were lots of Greek city-states on the mainland, not just over in Greece, but on this mainland element. Whenever they would defeat some of them, what they would do is take large groups, men and women, sometimes as slaves, but other times not so much as slaves, and just move them and settle them way over here so that they wouldn't be a threat. Over here, there's actually elements a little bit later on as China is discovering Greek culture, and you can find statues of the Buddha, which comes along later. that has a bit of a sort of Chinese face instead of Indian. Oh man, I'm forgetting his name, but the Buddha, the enlightened one, of course, was Indian, but wearing Greek-style robes, so that it's the sort of people. The Greeks here are embracing Buddhism, but are so culturally maybe more Greek, but racially a bit more Asian. And so I find that fascinating. But we can see some of these do represent sort of Alexander and post-Alexander colony attempts, and that's sort of what this is going on here. We can see here these armies that are around here are mercenary armies. We have the one green army here. All the rest, these are mercenary armies that are just happily sitting here, not causing any trouble, that can be hired. These are Egyptian armies. These are Macedonian armies. So we have a reserve of troops if we want to hire. They're expensive. Don't do that unless you need them in a war. We're going to give this army a commander. We're going to give him Ptolemy Soter. Ptolemy the First. Soter. Soter means survival. That language is entirely incorrect. So we now have this. We have some scorned families. This is an element of the game in which they can cause rebellions and other problems. Now, we have that going. What I want to do down here is we're going to build some fairly cheap. See, we're costing us some money up here. I want to come over here just to keep. Oh, we can go back to the standard view. Keep things somewhat protected. You'll find that forts are very important in controlling the cities around them. Okay, so we're going to continue with this here. Okay, Ptolemy the Crafty. Intricate schemes, webs of deceit, and cunning plans are all perfectly ordinary behavior for Ptolemy Soter. It is said that nothing goes in Egypt without his knowledge. Nothing goes on, I presume they mean. Nothing goes on in Egypt. And, okay, so Ptolemy gains crafty. And we can look here. We can look and see him here. He is crafty, he is cautious, and he has blood. Again, that is incorrect. It should be the Ptolemaic line or something. We're going to get into that in the next episode. You want to come back in the next episode for some of my talks on him. We don't have his half-brother here. Do note that. Who he should have a half-brother. Some people call it brother. I think it would be Langanus, is the man that marries Ptolemy's mother after he is born. And they're using that as the family name here, but we're going to get into some of that next episode. And we can see the positive for money coming in. Over expenses, not over what I'm spending, starting to build things. So you're not going to get that. But it just from the army maintenance, fort maintenance, and wages, manpower. We have a maximum manpower, as you can see up at top, in blue there. Current sort of manpower gain and from pops and subjects. Pops is population. Instead of having high, we can see here. Here's our pops. And so we have 30 citizens. We have 5 freemen and 10 slaves. And so instead of saying like 30,000 or, throw on a number, they're just putting it down here. And we can see here, this is really well done. So in the city of Alexander, we have 20 that are Hellenic Macedonians, 6 Jewish Hebrews, and 4 Canaanite Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are the people that have moved over to or an element of them have moved over here and are doing Carthage. They have my understanding is a Phoenician start to their basis. And our freemen are 2 Hellenic Macedonians, 2 Druidic Leptonics, don't know, 1 Kemetic Egyptian, and slaves, 7 Kemetic Egyptians, I'm probably butchering that, and 3 Hellenic Macedonians. And so we can come down here and see here these are all Egyptian, and Egyptian. So it's this very sort of international city of Alexandria. This is part of how, because you can see between the slaves and all this is all Hellenic here. This is how Ptolemy secures his rule by doing land grants to these Macedonian phalanx troops, as I talked about. That's what really matters. That's what kicks butt in this time period, is the Macedonian phalanx. And so to get these people here, and throughout Alexander the Great's reign and marching, they're constantly getting new recruits coming out of Greater Macedon. The Hoplites are Hoplites. I'm saying it both ways, so if you're used to trying to teach what I understand to be the correct pronunciation, but also if you're used to hearing it the other way. That, and we can go into it at some point, that has a heavier shield, the Hoplites, a shorter spear. Those are the 2 big things. Some of the armor is different, where the phalanx has a smaller, lighter spear, a smaller, lighter shield, and a much longer, now it's getting into a pike. And so that with a lot of the Hoplites, it's one hand on the spear, one hand on the shield. Because of the smaller, lighter shield, they're able to move it so that with the phalanx pike, they're able to put 2 hands on the pike and still have the shield sort of there. So instead of the shield that's, the hand sort of more in the middle of the shield, it's moved to the edge of the shield, so they're able to handle a much longer pike. But there are still Hoplites troops, units, fighting sometimes as mercenary units, but coming from various Greek city-states, but that can also mean, Greek city-states that are outside of Greece, well into the legionary period, while there's also phalanx troops going as well. And again, this got all this from the book Legion versus Phalanx, or is it Phalanx versus Legion? I forget which, but it's one versus the other. Not that long in the book, but very good, just because the subject matter is limited. And then he goes into the first, the Hoplites, and then the transition to the phalanx, and looking at some of the later battles, that there are still units that are either working alongside legions or working alongside phalanx type armies that are the Hoplites. So that still stays as a valid fighting type long after this period, as we're currently in. Okay, an envoy from the Hellenistic regional power of Cyrenaica, that's over here, is requesting to import wild game from the province of Fafara. Yes, and notice, not only will we earn 1.5 gold pieces, we'll call it that, each month, we will Archer's discipline, because some mechanic that I don't quite understand why they think this, but I understand it does it. While this trait is in effect, our Archer's discipline is plus 5%. So that doesn't hurt. But so we will have slightly more disciplined archers. And from the Levantine power of Judea is requesting to import camels from the province of Karga. Yes, you can have. And camel discipline improves by 5%, and plus we get some of that going. And so we can see here that we have Okay, I knew this is coming. We have Sumara here, we have Judea, and then down here, Nabatea, all sort of, and this is coastal regions, which we have a little bit of down here. The Wars of the Diadochi. Having built the largest empire the world has ever seen, Alexander the Great died suddenly 10 years ago. I don't know. This is just a few short days before building, and I don't know. Don't know when this is set because I can sort of do math. I don't know. Because before they were saying 18 years. With no clear successor to the empire, his generals, the Diadochi, or successors, have since fought over Alexander's spoils. One of Alexander's oldest friends and our ruler Ptolemy has secured the wealthiest province of the empire, Egypt, for himself. Expansion into Greece and Syria has, however, been thwarted by Antigonus Monophthalmus, the former satrap of Phrygia, with his entire Egyptian fleet crushed in the recent battle of Salamis. There's been several battles at Salamis. The famous one is, of course, happens after the Battle of the 300 of the Thermopylae, but yeah, that's up in Greece, I believe, unless there's multiple Salamises. Antigonus is perhaps the most successful of the successors, but his success breeds enemies, and he now stands alone and vulnerable. This great opportunity, if we can now secure allies to oppose him, the empire belongs to the strongest. We have claims on Alexander's formula. The claims will go away upon the death of our ruler. Okay, we will get into that, like I say, in the future. So that's us, Ptolemy, Seleucus, Antigonus, Antipater, that's, Cassandra, okay, and, where are you, ruler of? No, where is Green Horses? Where's Green Horses? Oh, Thrace, okay. So, okay, it's up here in Thrace. Okay, so another general's up in here, ruling that region. I disagree that the death of our primary ruler claim to the empire goes away for us. Obviously, I know this is just a game and all. Now we are building up our army. We are going. I want to get Cyrenaica, because. Oh, pause. We can look at diplomacy here. He has a bunch of subjects. Athens, the Nicaean League, whatever that is, Ionia, Aeolia, Cappadocia, Judea, Samaria, Argos. Okay, so he has lots of allies. We have some allies too. We have Andros, which is up in here. No, Andros is, sorry, he's down here. No, it's up in here. Where is Andros? Can we, yeah, it's these islands. We have these islands as allies, and we have some other islands up there. Diplomacy. And we have Kos, which is here. And back to here. And we have Diadochianus, which is down here. This is sort of a military state set up somehow by us. I don't quite know. Sort of a buffer zone with Kush down here in the south. So we do have 3 allies ourselves. But Cyrenaica, they're trading with us. We'll lose the trade, but I'd rather conquer them and get a hold of this territory. This isn't populous enough to really be a proper city. So it's a thing we can grab up without causing too much problems. And historically they did it. Okay, we have lack of commander here, and this is here. Okay. Now we can still use the language to know who our family members are. Ptolemaic family members often killed each other, so that may or may not be a good thing to put them in charge. But I think we will. You can see the military abilities there, plus special traits. And these are somewhat random here, I know. We're going to put him in charge there. And over here, holding out here, tactically inflexible. Brave, so we'll give him command on our eastern frontier. He's just to hold that flank. And I think to speed this up, let's... Oh, and there's multiple ways to build units. I want to... build in a few more provinces. You can see here we're still building out our markets, which will grow our treasuries, or our treasury. What new units shot up over? Oh, these guys, yeah. So just march to there. We're going to combine all of these. You can see the red notification that the markets have been built. We don't have any elephant units here. Lawn. You need to have access to elephants, and I think we need to trade for elephants from the Seleucids or somewhere else. At this time, and for a time leading into the future, there were three species of elephants alive at this time. There was the African elephants, which I don't think they used at all, down obviously here in Africa. There was the Asian elephants, which we often see depictions of those being used. And then there was a third. It was a smaller than the Asian elephants, I believe, North African elephant species that has since, in the antiquity, died out. And I don't know that the elephants oh man, I always do this, don't I? Hannibal brings over the Alps. Probably a lot of them are North African elephants, but the one that survives going over the Alps and campaigns through much of the campaign is a really huge elephant. So I don't know, maybe that might be an African or something. I don't know. But always, whenever you look at a modern depiction, I want both of you together. There we go. So combine them. The Ptolemaic elephants are always a bit smaller than the Seleucid elephants. And that is, I think, partly because of the amount of a castle built on top of the elephants was generally larger for the Seleucids than the Ptolemaic, and I think that is just because they had bigger elephants. And I looked, and I could not find a source for elephants in North Africa here. And I looked and I looked and I looked, and I finally figured out there's a way to find resources, trade good map, and search for some of the stuff. And it's, you know, they're over in here or something. So this isn't perfect. So we need African elephants source. Now, pretty weak army in unit type. We're going to give it, we're going to come here, create new unit. Let's give them some horses. So we have some horses. Okay, so, yeah. We're going to move. This is a lot. This is a bit risky, and this is going to cause a bit of attrition because we're going to march these guys through the desert. But I think this is probably the best way to go about this. Yeah, I know you don't have a commander, but you're going to be combined with that. We're starting to build up some more money, so let's see about increasing. Come into province of Memphis. Didn't know that this was called Babylon ever. In here, obviously, this is sort of near the, you know, the pyramids. So this is the larger, okay, city of Memphis. It's actually the city of Memphis in the province of Memphis, in the region of Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt is above Upper Egypt because it's up river, down river. We're going to build them up here. Now, one thing I didn't really do is we can also quickly look around here for other possible trade routes that could be open. This also seems to be a bit of a random thing, so we're going to see about adding another trade route here. Let's do glass, and we're actually going to get it from the western delta here, so we're trading from within our own empire. That's something we should have seen about doing earlier on, but I've done several starts. Not all of these regions can have a trade route, and sometimes it sort of moves around. I'm not sure whether this is a random thing or just somehow conditions are such. Okay, now we can see about see if we were to get this from ourselves, this will give us more research points. So we're trading again from within ourselves. Papyrus from up here, I guess, going down to there. Okay, these two. And they're going to come to here. We're just going to accept the attrition losses as we march across the desert. This is our manpower, mostly because we're moving such large units across provinces that really can't do it. Probably would be better to break this up and have a march in sections. I do want 2 armies specifically once we get over here. I want to conquer it with as little back and forth as possible. Okay, Hellenistic local power Abythia folded. They folded to the threat of war from the Hellenistic major power of Phrygia. Okay, they gave the city of Tarsus. you don't want to get down into the place where you're having manpower problems. Because I've done that and it's not good. You can see monthly balance is plus 18. That is pretty good. So seeing that is good, what we're going to do is come over here and we're going to do not a marketplace but training camp, which you see local manpower plus 10%. So we want to sort of do this in relatively large provinces first at least. So we'll get that. Do some of those which will increase the max and current recruiting power and that type of thing. Let's see what our allies are doing up here. Okay. Now, we want a war. We can just go, hey, yeah, declare war. And we can show supremacy, but notice accumulated more than 10 war score. This isn't going to, you can see over here, no casus belli. Our stability, which can go to a max negative of 3, so it would almost you know, be as bad as it can be. So what we want to do here is do a covert action, use some of our oratory power. Here is fabricate claims on Cyrenaica. So, and we want the province of Cyrenaica. You can sort of see that the territory goes a little bit outside of their province, so we're gonna do this. Okay, claim fabricated. We now have the claims. All that, use a bunch of our oratory power to get that. Now that's going to take a little while to sort of happen. And you can see here June 9. So a few days sending the messenger. Okay, that's happened. So now we can declare war. Take Cyrenaica. And we don't have the big hit for that. Declare war. Take Cyrenaica, yes. So we're going to move you guys into there, and you guys up into here. Okay, so war. Hellenistic major power have declared war upon us. Ah, this hasn't happened before when I played this, so now they've decided that this is a good time to come to war with us, which is a bad time for us. So we're going to build some units. Actually, you know, I'm going to cancel those two. We're going to come over here, so I want them faster, and successively get them there. They have a fort here, we have a fort. We don't have the money to pay for them. Base cost 50. So it'll cost you. No, we can't do that. yeah, we'll do this. Okay, so now we have this mercenary force. We can see these are mostly heavy infantry with some archers and such. So we're going to come up to here. March across our desert. An unwelcome gift. Okay. Hermaeus Sosugis, a loyal servant of the state, yet a man of questionable aesthetic talent, has commissioned a statue in honor of Ptolemy Soter. The citizens gather from far and wide. This is hideous. Demolish it at once. Okay. This option is available because we're crafty. Okay, so we could say that this is hideous. We leave it there. We lose 10 popularity. Our current is 70. We could afford that a hit. We could demolish it. We're going to lose 5 popularity, but we're also going to lose 20 loyalty on him. So you'd still be more loyal than not, but not terribly good. And since we have the crafty trait, which this event has happened before with me, but without having the crafty trait, this option available without the crafty trait. Ptolemaic gains 15% popularity. Have the sculptor recarve the image in the image of this guy. No, somebody else. Okay. Oh no, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do that, and he loses 2. Okay, we're gonna do that. Okay, you can see we have we're at 100% value of sieging this city, so we're going to continue that. This is being tougher than I anticipated. Okay. We're going to keep our blitzkrieg to the west up. We come to there. Combined. Really need these guys in the east, but I already at war there, so we're gonna, for better or for worse, we're gonna continue that. We have a general here? Yes, okay, and he's no, alright. Blunt, righteous, shrewd, and honest, okay. Like I've said before, I'm sure they're going to continue to add elements to the game. I would love this to be like, hey, these are archers, you know, and have an archer figure, and because that shield is way too big if he's a phalanxy guy. That's more like a hoplites type thing, maybe a bit big, but we can see the sort of Egyptian type units looking very Egyptian-y. You know, so if you have a camel unit, I wish it was like a guy sitting on a camel. You know, if that was the predominant, you know, obviously you'd have to pick one if there's more than one. Okay, you guys take the desert province, you come along the coast. Okay, you combine up. You're going to take that town. Okay, now we can see here, it's at negative 35, so this is going to take a while to get to 100% to take the siege. That's going to take a little while to go. I think, are we at war with Judea? No, it's not Cyrenaica. We are, yeah. No, it doesn't look like we're at war with. Yeah, they're gives tribute, but they're not at war. So they may have access there. So we're gonna come here now. We have to go all the way down here and around because this fortification is giving influence. You can't bypass this, except for that we can come all the way down and come in from this far side. So we can come through our own city, but but we might as well take that and see if we can come up through this bottleneck. Okay, so these guys, now they do have a fort over here and another one. Well, maybe they don't have another one. Got one fort up here. Well, I think we're going to end this episode here. If you haven't already, please like the video, and of course also subscribe to watch the continuing series of me talk on and on and on and on about the ancient world and many other great historical videos. I'd love to hear your comments about the game, about the history. If you've got corrections, post corrections. If you want to post links to Wikipedia articles, I'm happy to have those. And other stuff, though, please, keep it safe for work and whatnot. We're going to get into other details of all of this. Some will verge on not safe for work, because the Ptolemies are very interesting people. So we will continue this next episode. Thanks so much.